So last week we talked about the rise in interest rate over the last couple of weeks and how that may potentially slow the housing market enough where you're not getting these crazy multiple offer situations, and it allows more people to get in the market, get their offers accepted, so on and so forth. In fact, I did a poll late last week on my page asking viewers whether or not the rise in interest rate is essentially going to affect their ability to move forward in the process. And 53% or 52% of viewers out there said that the interest rates had them essentially waiting on the sidelines, whereas 31% were full steam ahead, and then you had the rest that weren't in the market at all. So you guys have asked me, to talk about personal experiences in there, what I'm seeing as a real estate agent in the market. And so we're going to talk about that for a minute. And then we're going to go into detail about interest rates and supply and demand and how that may affect the market going forward. So over this past weekend, I showed about 12 properties to 3 different buyers. Out of those 12 showings, every single property, I called and had a conversation with the agent afterward to find out if they had any offers, where they were in the process, so on and so forth. Every single property had offers. Out of those 3 clients, I actually wrote 5 offers, well above the asking price on most of these. Some just above the asking price, but mostly well above the asking price. And as of this morning, I have responses back on 3 of the 5 that I wrote where we didn't even get a counteroffer. So no counteroffer at all received. And a lot of these had, offers again above the asking price, escalation clauses taking them up, above the highest offer, so on and so forth. But no response. In fact, the best situation that I have at the moment, and best, not really meaning the best, but the craziest, if you will, is we wrote an offer at $800,000 on a $700,000 purchase. So $100,000 more than the asking price. And clearly we didn't get a response. There were 12 offers higher than our offer. So we were 14% above the asking price at $700,000, and there were 12 offers above our price. So, we didn't even have a shot in this market. And this is a buyer, strong credit, over 20% down, a great buyer in any market. And we're not even getting a response in this market just because of the frenzy out there. So as of right now, the rise in interest rates hasn't really done a lot to slow the housing market. Now, this may be one of those things that buyers out there shopping don't even know that interest rates have gone up. Maybe they're not following them as closely as they should be. So buyers are out there putting in offers and not really knowing what's happening with offers. That could be the case. But nevertheless, you still have a ton of buyers out there in the market with rates up over 0.5% from the bottom. So what is actually going to slow this housing market? Because something has got to give. We can't continue at this pace for forever. We can't even continue at this pace for the next couple of months because, that property now that just went over $800,000 now becomes the new comparable in the area. And so the next seller that's going to list is going to use that property closing and list somewhere around that number and what have you. And now you have, I was one at 800,000 on that, and there were 12 above me. I have no idea how many actually came in lower than me, but now you have that pool of buyers that's now willing to potentially move on to the next one that list. So the next one comes on the market at 800,000. Those 12 that paid over 800, plus maybe some that paid under, are now bidding on the next property. And this cycle continues, and that is what is continuing to drive housing prices up. Is this frenzy. And there is some FOMO involved because there's this fear of missing out. People are now getting scared. Am I even going to be able to purchase a house? I mean, I'm having this conversation with clients. They're worried, am I even going to be able to buy something at this rate? Because things are moving so quickly. Every offer we put in goes well above the asking price. And people are starting to get scared, and rightfully so to some extent, because I could see this cycle continuing for some time, just because you have this built up demand, not enough supply out there. And if things do start to come to the market, which I do expect, and I've talked about that in other videos here in the next couple of months, as things heat up, across the country, and I'm not just talking about here in California, as things heat up across the country, markets are cyclical, and the spring market is typically one where you see more inventory, but you also see more demand. I think that's going to be, likely what we're going to see. I think you're going to see more homes come to the market, but I think, the demand is likely going to stay there unless rates creep up higher than, say, 4%. I think if rates stay under 4%, which right now they're, under 3.5%, I think you're going to see the demand stay pretty close to where it is now. But part of the problem in other states, not here in Southern California, is that you've got people moving out of states like California. You have people moving out of states like New York, and they're moving to areas that are, more tax friendly. The cost of living is less. People in California are moving to Arizona. They're moving to Idaho. They're moving to Texas. And these are states where, for the most part, homes are about half the price that they are here in California for the same house in a lot of markets. And I know there's exceptions to that rule, but homes are about half the price and sometimes a third less than what they are here in Southern California. And what you have is people selling at a high price here in Southern California, and they're taking that equity and now they're going to buy something in another market. Take Arizona, for example, because a lot of Californians are going to Arizona because of state taxes, because of income taxes, because of cost of living. And so these people are selling in California and they're going there, and they're willing to pay way more for a property because they're thinking California prices, right? So if they go there and they find a house that's $400,000, they're willing to pay maybe $100,000 more in some cases for that property because they're used to paying $800,000 here in California. And so for them, there's still a huge savings to buy a comparable house, or maybe even a house that's bigger, in an area where property taxes are less, state income tax is basically not existent, and income tax is much lower. And so all around, it's way more affordable than California. And so you take that example and you push that out to, say, Texas and Idaho and Tennessee, and that's just taking the Californians that are moving. Now you take the people moving from New York that are going to Florida and a lot of the southern states and what have you. So, it's not, it is definitely supply and demand that's causing the frenzy, if you will, in the house prices to increase like they're increasing. But you also have people moving from areas that are, used to paying considerably more for properties, in the big scheme of things. And now they're willing to go to, they're able to go to these markets where, they're able to pay way more for a property, and that's driving up the cost in those areas. And it's just creating more of a frenzy. So the only thing that can slow this thing down outside of a huge disaster, globally, which I don't see happening at the moment, that would be some sort of black swan event, but would be more supply to the market. Because right now, interest rates rising over the last 5 weeks or so hasn't really done much. Now, again, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for these things to kick in, for people to realize that, hey, my monthly payment is now $200 more per month than it was before because, I'm paying more for this, this property because of a higher interest rate. And so that may slow people overbidding on properties. But right now, we haven't seen that. And the only thing that I can see that's going to slow this housing market is we need more supply. We need more options for buyers to choose from, because when you take away, the options for people, and you're only giving people a couple of options, and you have all of these buyers bidding on the same property, that's what creates this craziness. In fact, 2 of the buyers that I showed property to this weekend wanted to see some of the same homes. And so you've got 2 buyers looking at the same property, potentially interested in making an offer on it, and I'm just one person. So you take, however many other agents that are out there having a similar experience, and that's where this craziness comes from. And At the moment, I don't see a lot of changes. And I'm not saying this to discourage people. I'm not saying this to, to make people feel bad or what have you. It's the reality of the market and what you have to get used to if you're planning on buying in this market. And I'm not here to tell you that you need to buy a property or sell a property. I'm just here to lay, the groundwork, if you will. If you are planning on buying, you should know what to expect when you're out there in the housing market. It's a tough market, and it's likely going to be for some period of time. If you're considering buying in this market, make sure you're working with a professional agent, somebody that is actually, can guide you through the process. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in this market I'm having to follow up with people on the other side to get responses, to get, just to basic communication, because, these agents aren't used to being this busy and people are overwhelmed, and it's hard to get people to respond and provide you with accurate information so that you can actually serve your clients well. I mean, I was talking to a client over this weekend, and part of the conversation was, it's frustrating as a real estate agent because I used to be able to guide my clients. I used to be able to tell you, hey, look, this is where I think the property is going to sell. This is what you should do to help your offer stand out amongst the competition and what have you. I've been doing this nearly 18 years, and I, used to be able to provide value to my clients, or what I thought was value to my clients. In this market, it's hard. It's difficult. I can't tell you where the property is going to sell within a couple of percent, just because people are doing things that I've never seen in the housing market. And people are willing to write things into contracts and give up things that, normally wouldn't be the case, just because of that, that frenzy, if you will. So if you're considering buying in this market, just know what you're getting into. How long can this continue? I honestly don't know. I just don't see a lot of change happening in the market at the moment that could change the big picture. But as I get information, I'll continue to put it out there. I'll continue to update you. But for now, I appreciate you taking the time to watch, listening to me vent over here. But thanks for the support. Have a great day. Bye-bye.